A story begins in a lively middle school art classroom. The camera pans across the room, showing students chatting and painting enthusiastically. At one corner of the room sits Ethan, a quiet, introverted boy with messy hair and oversized glasses. Unlike the others, Ethan doesn't use bright colors or follow the teacher's instructions to paint landscapes or flowers. Instead, he works on an abstract piece of swirl of bold, chaotic colors that seem to tell a hidden story. The teacher, Ms. Bradford, a stern and overly critical woman, walks around inspecting the students' work. Her praise is reserved for the cookie-cutter paintings that meet her standards. When she reaches Ethan's desk, her expression shifts to a mix of confusion and disdain. "What is this supposed to be?" she says, holding up Ethan's painting. The class grows silent. Ethan hesitates, but softly says, "It's how I see the world." Miss Bradford scoffed loudly, addressing the class. "See, class, this is why it's important to listen to instructions. Random scribbles are not art." The class bursts into laughter, and Ethan's face flushes with embarrassment. He looks down at his hands, his confidence shattered. As the bell rings, Ethan hurriedly gathers his painting, now crumpled, and leaves the room. His classmates whisper behind his back, while Miss Bradford shakes her head in disapproval. Ethan trudges home through the rain, his painting clutched tightly against his chest to protect it from getting wet. The gray sky mirrors his mood, and tears threaten to spill as he replays the humiliating scene from class. He finally reaches his small apartment, where his mother, Sarah, is folding laundry at the dining table. Sarah immediately notices his slumped shoulders and asks, "Rough day, sweetheart?" Ethan hesitates, then shows her the crumpled painting. She studies it carefully, a warm smile spreading across her face. "This is beautiful, Ethan," she says gently. "You have such a unique way of seeing the world." But Ms. Bradford said it's just scribbles. Ethan mutters, his voice barely audible. Sarah kneels beside him and places a hand on his shoulder. "Don't let anyone tell you what art should look like. Art comes from the heart, and this is you that makes it special." Ethan places the painting on his small desk where other unfinished sketches and paintings are scattered. Despite the teacher's words, he can't bring himself to stop creating. As the evening progresses, he gets lost in his work, finding comfort in the strokes of his paintbrush. The next day, he takes his supplies to the park, a place he loves because it's peaceful and full of inspiration. He sets up near an old oak tree and starts painting again, determined to escape the hurt through his art. Ethan sits in the park under the shade of a large oak tree, lost in his painting. His brush glides across the canvas, layering bold streaks of color around him. People pass by, some glancing curiously at the boy so engrossed in his work. He doesn't notice the older man standing a few feet away, quietly observing him. The man, dressed in a crisp blazer and carrying a leather satchel, seems intrigued by Ethan's focus. Finally, he steps closer and clears his throat, startling Ethan. "That's quite the piece you're working on," the man says with a warm smile. Ethan, hesitant and shy, murmurs a polite "thank you" without making eye contact. The man crouches slightly to get a better view of the painting. "It's raw and emotional. Most kids your age don't paint like this. What's your name?" "Ethan," he replies, still unsure of the stranger's intentions. The man introduces himself as Mr. Graham, an art curator who often visits the park for inspiration. He gently asks Ethan about his work, and eventually Ethan opens up about his passion for painting and the humiliating incident with his teacher. Mr. Graham listens intently and smiles. "Ethan, don't let anyone discourage you. You have a gift. May I take a photo of your painting?" "I'd love to share it with some colleagues." Ethan reluctantly agrees, unsure if this encounter will amount to anything. Mr. Graham thanks him and leaves, but not before saying, "Keep painting, Ethan, you'll go far someday." Days pass, and Ethan continues to paint in the quiet corners of his home and the park, finding solace in his colors and strokes. He hasn't given much thought to the encounter with Mr. Graham, chalking it up to a kind stranger's encouragement. Little does he know, that moment is already setting events into motion. At a prestigious art gallery downtown, Mr. Graham stands before a group of influential art critics and collectors. He has presented Ethan's painting as a mystery artist's work, avoiding too many details to keep the focus on the art itself. The vibrant and emotional piece captivates everyone, sparking a flurry of interest. "This is extraordinary," one collector remarks. "That's pure, unfiltered expression, like nothing I've seen in years." The gallery owner agrees to feature the painting in their upcoming showcase, dubbing it "Untitled Brilliance." Posters and invitations go out, creating a buzz about the mysterious artist whose work is already being called revolutionary. Back at home, Ethan is oblivious to the excitement brewing in the city. He quietly paints while his mom watches the news on their old TV. Suddenly, she gasps, calling Ethan over. His painting flashes on the screen during a segment about the gallery's upcoming exhibition. "That's your work, Ethan," she exclaims. He stares in disbelief, his heart racing. The day of the exhibition arrives, and the city is abuzz with excitement. Collectors, critics, and art enthusiasts gather at the gallery, eager to see the painting and learn about the mysterious artist. Ethan, nervous but curious, decides to attend the event in secret. Wearing a simple hoodie and keeping to the edges of the crowd, he watches as people admire his work. Whispers fill the room. Who could have created this? It's so raw, so full of emotion. Ethan feels a mix of pride and disbelief. Meanwhile, miles away at the school, Ms. Bradford sits in the teacher's lounge scrolling through her phone. She stumbles upon an article about the showcase and her eyes widen when she recognizes the painting. It's the same one she mocked in class. Her mind flashes back to the classroom, to the hurt look on Ethan's face as she belittled him in front of everyone. A pang of guilt washes over her. She immediately looks up Ethan's name in the school records, realizing she knows nothing about the boy she dismissed so easily. Back at the gallery, Mr. Graham takes the stage to speak about the painting. He reveals that the artist is a young boy with an extraordinary gift, but does not yet name Ethan. As the crowd erupts with questions, Ethan overhears people praising his work, their words filling him with a sense of validation. Ethan watches from the shadows of the gallery as his painting is brought to the center stage for auction. The room is electric with excitement, the spotlight illuminating his work, now titled Untitled Brilliance. Ethan's heart pounds as the auctioneer begins the bidding. The opening bid is a jaw-dropping $50,000, and Ethan's eyes widen in disbelief. Within moments, wealthy collectors eagerly outbid one another, their paddles rising in quick succession. The numbers climb higher. $100,000, $500,000, and finally the gavel slams down at an astonishing $2.5 million. The room erupts in applause. Ethan stands frozen in place, overwhelmed by the realization of what has just happened. All the ridicule, the doubts, and the hurt he endured now seem distant as his talent is recognized on a grand scale. Across town, Ms. Bradford watches the auction live streamed on her tablet. Seeing the admiration Ethan's work has garnered, she feels the weight of her actions. Her students glance curiously as she silently shuts the screen, a mix of guilt and disbelief on her face. Meanwhile, at the gallery, Mr. Graham subtly scans the crowd for Ethan, knowing the boy must be watching. He steps up to the microphone and makes an announcement. The proceeds of this auction will be held for the artist, who is a young talent with a bright future. The following morning, Ethan stands outside the school building, staring at the familiar entrance. His heart is pounding, but this time it's not from fear. With his newfound confidence, he steps inside, clutching a rolled-up print of his painting. In the hallway, students whisper as they recognize him from the news. Some call out congratulations, but Ethan stays focused. He reaches Ms. Bradford's classroom, where she's preparing for her next lesson. She looks up, startled to see him. "Ethan," she says hesitantly. Her voice is softer than he remembers. Ethan steps forward and unrolls the print of his painting, placing it on her desk. "This is for you," he says. "I wanted you to have it." Ms. Bradford's eyes well up as she studies the artwork she once mocked. "Ethan, I'm so sorry," she stammers. "I was wrong to dismiss your talent. Your work is incredible." Ethan nods, his expression calm. "You taught me something important," he says, "that I don't need anyone else's approval to believe in myself." Ms. Bradford is visibly moved, and the class, now gathered at the door, looks on in stunned silence. Ethan turns to leave, but not before saying, "I hope next time you encourage someone instead of tearing them down." Ethan returns home, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. The paintings auction had not only made him a wealthy young artist, but also sparked something deeper, the desire to help others like him who feel unseen or discouraged. Sitting at his desk surrounded by his art supplies, he begins drafting an idea foundation to support young artists with limited resources and no encouragement. When Ethan shares his vision with his mom, her eyes light up. "You could change lives, Ethan." "Oh," she says, her voice filled with pride. Together, they research how to establish a fund, host workshops, and create safe spaces where kids can express themselves freely. Word spreads quickly. With Mr. Graham's guidance, Ethan partners with local galleries and schools to organize an art exhibit featuring works from young, underprivileged creators. Submissions pour in, and Ethan is stunned by the talent and stories behind each piece. And meanwhile, Ms. Bradford visits the exhibit. Humbled by Ethan's accomplishments, she volunteers to teach art workshops for the foundation, determined to become the kind of mentor she should have been all along. The exhibit is a huge success, with one painting even being purchased by a major collector. The proceeds go toward funding art supplies and scholarships for kids in need. Under the warm glow of gallery lights, Ethan stands before an eager audience at the opening of the youth art exhibit. The room is filled with aspiring artists, parents, collectors, and supporters who have come to celebrate the foundation's mission. Ethan holds the microphone tightly, his hands trembling slightly, but as he looks out at the sea of faces, a calm confidence washes over him. "I never thought I'd be standing here," Ethan begins. "There was a time when I believed my art wasn't good enough, when someone I looked up to told me it was worthless." He pauses, the memory of Ms. Bradford's criticism flashing in his mind. "But I've learned something important," so he continues, his voice steady. "Art isn't about meeting someone else's expectations. It's about expressing yourself, your emotions, and your story. Every stroke, every color, it's a piece of who you are, and that has value." The crowd listens intently as Ethan shares his journey, from the humiliation in the classroom to the moment his painting sold for millions, and how that moment inspired him to help others. This foundation isn't just about art. It's about giving kids like me the chance to be seen, to be heard, and to believe in their dream.